Let's cross now to Nigeria Affairs commentator Collins Nweke, who joins us from Brussels. Welcome to the programme, Collins. Now, we heard the confusion on the street in our report. Has the government failed to communicate what these reforms actually mean before rolling them out in the new year?
The straightforward answer to your question, Teibe, is yes, government has failed. There has clearly been a communication gap, and that matters. Major tax reforms anywhere in the world succeed only when citizens understand not just what is changing, but why and how it affects them personally. In Nigeria's case, the technical work may be sound, pretty sound, but the public communication has lagged behind the policy timetable. That said, this is not uniquely Nigerian. Governments often overestimate how quickly complex fiscal reforms, can be understood by the public. The concern is that when reforms arrive amid confusions, they risk being seen as coercive rather than, actually corrective, which was what Nigeria's, tax reform was meant to be. But for Nigeria, this, current late-stage uncertainty could undermine early compliance, not because people, reject reform, but because they are unsure what it demands of them. For international observers, the key point is this: communication is not cosmetic. It is foundational to legitimacy. If the government uses the early months of implementation to, intensify public education, clarify exemptions and engage informal actors, trust can still be rebuilt. But at this moment, it looks really precarious.
Now, the reforms promise tax prosperity, not poverty, but in an economy dominated by the informal sector, is widening the net actually possible without squeezing the poor?
It is possible, but only if the reform is smartly sequenced and digitally enabled. Some of us have been on records from the very beginning that there are no two ways around this. The danger in informal economies is not taxation itself, let's get that clear, but how it is applied. If enforcement, relies on blunt instruments, for instance, checkpoints, harassment, arbitrary levies, then yes, the poor will definitely suffer. However, modern tax systems widen the net by formalizing activity, not criminalizing survival. That means incentives for registration, simplified micro-tax regimes, digital payments, and thresholds that protect, subsistence earners, like the ones we saw in the clip that you showed. Countries like Indonesia and Brazil, for instance, have shown this can work when informality is treated as an economic transition, not, a moral failure. So, the reforms promise can only be credible if enforcement targets high-value activities, tax leakages and elite non-compliance first. Those should be the main focus, the early focus. If Nigerians see that prosperity is genuinely being taxed before poverty, well, acceptance will inevitably follow.
Right, and Nigerians are demanding better roads and hospitals in exchange for compliance. Can this administration guarantee that new revenues won't just disappear into the bureaucracy?
Well, Taibe, this is the central, trust question that Nigeria is actually dealing with, and it is entirely legitimate. Tax compliance is not driven by patriotism alone. It is driven by reciprocity. Citizens pay taxes when they see results, concrete results. No administration can offer an absolute guarantee, let's get that clear, but it can often, offer credible safeguards. That means transparent, reporting of tax revenues, ring-fencing funds for visible projects, visible, not just announced. Independent audits and public dashboards that allow citizens to track spending. Globally, this is how trust is rebuilt after long periods of, fiscal mistrust. I mean, I can't begin to lecture anybody about how deep the fiscal mistrust in Nigeria is. So if Nigerians pay more and see nothing change, compliance will definitely collapse. But if even modest improvements in healthcare, roads, education become visible within even less than a year, the reform will gain momentum definitely. Trust is built through evidence, not assurances or announcements.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Collins Nweke in Brussels, thank you very much for joining us.